Yeah, no, I think it makes perfect sense. One of the big primary questions is, if for me, is their D line better since this? Did their D line get better this offseason, or is it worse? I mean, they lose Armstead, but man, I love Leonard Floyd, and especially if you can get him in, as you said, kind of situational pass rushing downs, he can burn the edge. And I kind of like Jordan Elliott when he was at Texas and then went to Missouri. I liked him, and he hasn't done much, but Lund sent me a stat that he was like sixth in against defensive tackles graded against the run last year, sixth in the league. But that whole defense played well last year. I don't know. I mean, I like Jordan Elliott. I like Malik Collins. He's enormously powerful. What do you think of the trade off? And I guess the big question I would have is, do you think the Niners look at what they added and what they lost there and say that D line is the priority? Because I think they're going line of scrimmage.
All right.
Or do they look at McKivitz and Brendel and Feliciano and Burford and say, man, that's the priority?
No, I think we're full. We've been talking for what, 50 minutes here. Let's be honest. They're going to draft a D lineman in the first round on Thursday night. It's what
They
they
always
do.
do.
It's what they do.
That's what
And
they
I
do.
think, I think there's a need on this team for this. Now, they made a lot of changes, obviously letting Eric Armstead go. And you brought in, to me, two players that are completely different. Jordan Elliott is a great run player. We saw that last year in Cleveland. 49ers had a hard time running on their front. And I went back and watched those snaps. He played well. He's a little bit of a two gapper where he's kind of holding the point. And then, so they're going to have to teach him to play the way they want him to play, which is more up the field. Or there may be a slight change in what Brandon Staley has this defense do. I don't think it'll be dramatic, but I think in some situations you may see them doing that. So to me, in your base, right now, if and they're going to draft some players and probably a D lineman early and then one later. But right now, if you were to line up and play, Nick Bosa and the Gravedigger Javon Hargrave on your front, I would think in the base defense, Yatir Gross Matos is one end in that Cleveland Furl role. It could be Leonard Floyd in some situations, but you got to be careful how many snaps he plays. Buffalo used him appropriately, where you want him in for half the game, not 2/3 of the game, and you want him in on to rush the quarterback. So to me, he would be in your turbo package, what I call the gold rush, which is your sub package to go get the quarterback. Gross Matos, and Nick would be your ends, and then the Gravedigger. And I think Jordan Elliott is the one who profiles as a base inside defensive tackle. Now, when they come off the field and you go to your turbo, then you bring in Leonard Floyd and you bring in Malik Collins, who's more of a traditional, first step, three tech, getting up the field. So, all that being said, you got some young guys. I think Kevin Givens mixes in behind. You got Robert Beal, and you got Kalia Davis coming back. You've got other guys, and obviously, what's Drake going to be about? This year, his body is just worn down.
Yeah.
He put on a lot of good weight last off season, and then we didn't see him in the weight room as much, and he was losing weight, and he lost some functional football strength. So that can't happen anymore. So all that being said, and these are veteran guys, that are going to spend some time with the performance staff, in the trainers room. So I think there's always a need for D linemen here. And do you want someone to just purely, rush the edge? Would be, the question. Do you like Chop Robinson much? That guy is
He's fast.
he's a pure, I don't know if he's Micah, but he's got that first step burst, and when he comes off the edge, now that guy would be in your turbo. Could you imagine him mixing in with Leonard Floyd and Nick on the other side? And you could move. I saw, Buffalo move Floyd inside over guards, and he could rush, from that spot. Do you like the other Robinson more, who's more of a pure, base?
He was fantastic in Mobile. I mean,
Yeah.
unbelievable. He was
Now
the
he's
practice player
different.
of the
He
week.
would be your pure
He's
base
he's a he's a
end.
monster.
He's a monster. Now, could you move him inside and teach some, pass rushing skills Could he stay outside? That guy's more of your Matir, your Gross Matos type or Cleveland Furl, more of your base end. So yeah, I think there's no question. I honestly, my thought is always, that they're going to draft a defensive lineman here, whether it's Darius Robinson from Missouri or Chop Robinson from Penn State. Do you like Johnny Newton? More
It's
of an
funny.
inside
I
guy.
had Baldy on, Greg, and I'm like, hey, who's your favorite defensive tackle in the draft? And before I could even get the sentence out, he's like Johnny Newton, Illinois. He's a big fan of Johnny Newton, who's
Yeah.
Shorter guy, pass rush. People forget how important quickness is inside, and this guy's enormously quick.
He's Javon Hargrave. Can you imagine?
He's
lining up
very
with him
quick.
and the
I love
Gravedigger?
Michael Hall from Ohio State, who's
Yeah.
also quick, and I think ran 4.76 at 300 pounds. And I know he's projected to go in the middle of the second, but the Niners, every one of these teams, as you well know, have a different, they grade these players differently. Some people think a guy's a third round pick. Some people, we have him in the middle of the first. Every board looks different. But Michael Hall, who the Niners did meet with, I watched that Michigan-Ohio State game, and he just tossed that kid, the center Nugent, around all day. Super quick, 300 pounds. I'm not saying he's Bryant Young, but he's really, really fast off the really quick.
And we were talking earlier about, how they draft and losing Adam Peters and Tarek coming in. Kyle will pick wide receivers, quarterbacks. Brian Gracie, obviously, with Brock. Chris Furster is going to pick O-linemen. They're going to lean on their expertise. When it comes to D-line, it's Kasarik. And he has some kind of a weird voodoo spell he puts over everybody. And he just gets the guys. And, the one thing, the 40 time is there, but it's the 10-yard split.
Yeah.
That's
how
more
quick
important.
Are you?
But really, it's the GTFO. They get the F off, and they do it not even 10 yards. They're looking at 2 yards. They're looking at your first 2 or 3 steps.
Who gets off the ball?
Can you get off the ball? And that's what they do. Now with Brandon Staley come in, might be a little slower off the ball in some situations and pinch it down and, want a 2-gapper. But whenever you're looking at these guys, it's who gets off the ball. And what's the 10-yard split? For Darius Robinson, the guy ran a sub 540, a 495, but his 10-yard split's 173. The guy that I look at is Chop. I mean, dear God,
he's shot out of a cannon. He's shot out of a cannon.
His 10-yard splits 154, and he ran a 4.4840. So he's the mold, but he looks, and I see, the shoulder dip and the whole thing, and he also chases it down to the backside. Now, do you have to move up to get him? Will Chop fall to you at 31?
I think he'll probably be there. That'd be my guess. I mean, he could, because you got teams in front of them that are going to go wide receiver and O-line. And maybe some teams. I could see the Niners trading out of the first round altogether for a team want to trade up for Penix or Nix if they don't go in round 1 on the 5th-year option and get the quarterback. I could see them sliding into the top of the second round